How many of you have had a relationship end or dramatically change due to a difference? Right? Maybe it was a political difference. Maybe it was a family difference. Maybe it was an upbringing or a worldview difference. Maybe it wasn't even a big difference. Maybe it's just something someone posted and it got you a little bit, and that conversation got a little bit tense. The text then got a little bit shorter. Eventually, the visits became less frequent, and without anyone ever actually having to officially announce it, the relationship ended or it changed. It makes me think that old wise saying might be true, that if you want to buy less gifts at Christmas, you bring up politics at Thanksgiving, right? Right? We have been told that the differences are the problem. I don't think that's true. I actually believe that differences are a given, but division is always optional. Actually, your division that you have with those who you once had differences with, that was a choice that we made. We're told that differences are the reason that we're so divided in this world today. But I don't believe it's true. I believe that there is a partial truth. And here's the dangerous part about partial truths. Do you know what a partial truth is? It's a believable lie. A partial truth is something that's not too far-fetched so that you would embrace it as true. And what you embrace as true will dictate and navigate the rest of your life. Differences are a portion of what leads to division. But what we do with our differences are our choice. Because differences have multiple outcomes. Differences are the root of both division and diversity. But what we choose to do with those, that falls on us. I first noticed this 16 years ago when I went to Eastern Europe. You see, for the past 16 years, I've been working in the country of Bulgaria. In the country of Bulgaria, you have the larger Bulgarian population, but you also have a second group called the Roma people. The Roma people are the largest ethnic minority in all of Europe, and they've been pushed to the margins of society over time due to differences. And the differences are real. They have different race, they have different backgrounds, they have different upbringings, different worldviews, different levels of trust. These differences are real. But the problem, the division that we were seeing was not due to differences. The problem we were seeing, the division that was happening, was when generations of differences went unmanaged. And when differences are unmanaged for generations, what happens is this. Differences become suspicion. Suspicion eventually leads to distance, and that distance will turn into contempt. And contempt, especially where we're working in Eastern Europe, has become a pathway to having laws, regulations, and rules set in place that remove voices, remove a seat at the table, and change people's future. So 16 years ago, I was disheartened by this, and I thought there has to be something different. So then I flew back home to the U.S. Different country, different rules, different regulations, same pattern. Differences were leading us to suspicion. Suspicion was leading us down this path of distance, and that distance was leading to contempt, which eventually would pave the way for division. So I couldn't just talk about unity anymore. I felt like I talked about it till I was blue in the face. It was time to prove that there's a different path forward. So me and my beautiful wife, Cassidy, decided that we were going to intentionally create organizations and communities and partners with others that tried to create spaces that had lots of differences in order to prove that it can lead to something beautiful and not just something divisive. It was going well. We were watching political differences be set aside. We were watching racial differences be set aside. We were watching upbringings, faith, all the different things that guide our lives be set aside so that we could once again be human. So that we could see the person and not just their opinion. And then do you know what happened? 2020 happened. Do I have to say any more? No. 2020 happened, and it was more divisive than ever. It was a political season of divisiveness. There was a pandemic. There was arguments about vaccines. There was social media. There was race issues. There was division everywhere. So we had to make a decision. We have to double down on what we believe. So we made some choices. We made the choice that we would no longer treat people like headlines more than humans. We would never any longer run quickly to trying to label someone before we actually knew them. And we learned that we can disagree without having to disappear. About that same time, 2020, my son was about 4. His name's Kai. He's very curious. Kai wanted to, at 4, like most 4-year-olds, know everything that's happening. He wanted to know what everything was and what everything was called. And one day we're driving down the road. I go under a traffic light and he goes, "Papa, what's that?" Well, I'm driving. I'm not paying attention. I don't know what that is, right? And so I'm like, "Buddy, I don't know what you're talking about." And we go just a few feet further and I go under another traffic light and he goes, "What's that?" And I look in the rearview mirror and he's pointing up at the traffic light. Now, I'm from the South. I'm from a small town called Greenville, and I've learned recently that we have names for things that not everybody else in the world has names for things for. So in that moment, I didn't say that's a traffic light. You know what I said? I said, "Hey, buddy, that's a red light." He thought that was the funniest thing he's ever heard. He said, "Why is that a red light?" "It was green." I said, "You're right." So then I began to try to explain to him a little bit about why we call it a red light here. We call it a red light, buddy, because usually when we notice them, they're red. Usually it's what causes us because we have to stop if we're following the law, right? It's what inconveniences us, and it's our least favorite thing about traffic lights is when they turn red. And it hit me in that moment, the middle of 2020, the middle of trying to see communities and organizations not allow differences to divide them, that we do the same with one another. The thing that stops us in our track about the other person, that's what we call them. The thing that inconveniences us, the thing that we like the least about them, we define them by those things instead of seeing the fuller picture, that they have dignity and value because they are created as humans here on this earth just like you and I. And so as we moved past that, I realized in that moment that there was a pattern. There was a pattern that differences was a portion of multiple equations. But what we added to our differences is what made the result. So when your differences are met with fear, it is always going to lead to division. When your differences are met with control, it always leads to uniformity. And let me tell you, unity and uniformity are not the same thing. Uniformity says, hey, we can belong together as long as you become like me. Unity says, we can do life together and we can figure out our differences. Uniformity, it's just enforced sameness, but unity says, I will refuse to be divided from you, and I will not see you as your worst opinion or as your greatest difference. I will see you as a human. Someone that we have a greater purpose together than even our uniqueness as persons. This is an opportunity for us all to ask ourselves, if differences aren't the problem and division is clearly optional, then what do we do with our differences? Are they leading us to create beautiful environments full of diversity that shows the beauty of what humanity is? Are we allowing ourselves to silo or even be silenced, which, by the way, silence is not unity either. Silence is oftentimes isolation just holding its breath. And isolation is a form of division. It's removing yourself from others just as much as you would push someone else away. So these differences, they're a given, but division is clearly optional. We have a choice today. So I want to give you 3 practices really quick that I believe are not something that needs to be a declaration. It's something that can be a conversation. I do not think you should take this to your workplaces and change the environment, nor should you declare it over your family, but it should have a conversation in your life. Number 1, learn to choose curiosity over certainty. Because curiosity and certainty are not the same. Certainty walks into a conversation and says, I already know what you think, and I already know why you think that. Curiosity says, can you tell me how you got there? Can you explain to me what led you to that? And that in itself can change the conversation. Number 2, always choose honor over winning. Because if you win the argument but you lose the person, what did you win? And then last, I would say to choose repair over resentment. That even when that division has begun, even as people become more and more separated, there is an opportunity for always for us to repair, always to say, I'm sorry, always to say, this is the part I played, always willing to ask, so what do we need to move forward? I think that maybe this opportunity for us to think of one person in our life, one person where you're seeing division begin, one person where you're seeing your differences divide you, and maybe think about that one person and say, is there still an opportunity right now for me to come curious? Is there still an opportunity for me to bring honor to them as humans? And if it seems like it may be too far gone, I'm here to plead with you and tell you that you can disagree without disappearing. And you can ask the question, what can we do to move forward? Differences are a given. Like differences are going to, your family is going to think differently than you. Your neighbor is going to vote differently than you. Your workplace is going to be full of differences. None of that will change. But division is clearly optional.